What's going on, guys? Back here for another dumpster talk. In the dumpster, you got here Todd, myself, and we have Heather Valudes with the Chamber of Commerce. So, welcome, Heather. We're
Thank you.
very excited to have you on. Special guest. Dan was just kind of messing with us, saying like she's more used to interviews than we are. So,
I do this quite a bit.
yeah, you do
Yeah.
a lot of podcasts.
I've done a few podcasts, a fair share of podcasts, where
Yeah.
I've either been interviewing or I've been interviewed. So kind of both sides of it.
Alrighty.
Which do you prefer, would you say?
I do like interviewing people because then you get to kind of explore the questions with them and hear from them on their perspective. So that's always a fun one for us. But I like anything that's conversational. So a lot of times podcasts feel more conversational than anything, which is nice.
Yeah, a lot of people I feel like get a little nervous for this, and even when I first started too, I just like kind of didn't really like doing it that much.
Yeah.
But it's just like a conversation.
Yep.
Yep.
Always goes very smooth.
That's
Don't
right.
think about the cameras.
Right.
But one thing I would say for sure is we've known you for probably been coming to events a few years now,
Yeah.
and
So yeah, thank you again for coming on the podcast. Like Alex was just saying, we see you a lot at events the past 4 years that we've been here, and the Chamber is one of my favorite organizations to go to events at, just because I feel like there's a big like young presence that we're a part of that's not really too typical in the scrap industry. So it's great to be able to come local and go to events with some young people. So if you just wanted to kind of give a background on yourself, like where you came from, you're from Lancaster County, and yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised here in Lancaster County. I live kind of other side of the county in that I'm closer to the Chester County line out in Paradise. And I went to college, got my degree there in political science. So that's actually my background. I minored in geography and planning and then went on for my master's. But all during that, I was working. I worked at a bank for many years. Started as like a summer teller. So I was everybody's favorite person because it meant they could go on vacation and I would cover their vacation at the bank. So everybody there liked it. And then I started working for the Building Industry Association. So that was actually my first like job that was tied to my degree. And I was doing government affairs there. And then a position opened at the chamber as advocacy director at the time. So I applied for that position, took that one. That was almost 14 years ago now. So I've been at the chamber ever since. And really have taken on kind of progressive roles in the organization, started doing just our government affairs side of things, political policy impact, all that kind of stuff. And then over time and through attrition of roles, took on our marketing department or took on our events and programs department, then started to oversee some of the marketing, some of the operations. And then my predecessor announced he was retiring, and so I went in for that. And I've been the president now for almost 3 years. So it's been quite the journey through, but it's always fun. Every day looks a little bit different. Every day you might be sitting in a dumpster after your board meeting. You never know what you're going to be doing. So it's always fun.
Congrats on that too. 3 years of being president. I feel like
Thank you.
you became president right when we kind of started going to events. So
Yeah.
it's crazy that that's been 3 years already.
Yeah, I know. Time flies.
It's crazy. So we know like your team, you have a very great team at the chamber. What kind of goes into building a team like that? Like it ranges of all ages. We've got to know a lot of them,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of great people. How did you kind of build that team?
Yeah, so I think for us, we've always really focused on the core values within the organization. It's something we talk about a lot, aligned with our mission and vision for the organization is these core values, and they're to serve, connect, solve, and lead. And we talk about those both from a place of what we're doing for our members and for our business community, but we also think about them as how do we operate and function with each other. So when we talk about solve as a core value, it's something we embody as a team, and we expect our team to kind of think about that for each other too. So there's lots of pieces built into how do you kind of think about that and assess for that when you're hiring. But it is this commitment to those core values. And then over the past about 3 years, we've also adopted what we call operating principles, which are the ideas that you show up every day with grace, grit, and excellence. And that's how we're going to operate for each other all the time, right? And for ourselves. So it's like you're going to give grace to yourself and to others. You're going to have to get gritty sometimes of just like the flow of our work. And what the needs are of the community. And then we're going to do that all with excellence. So I think when I think about building team, it's really finding the people that align with that and really commit to that. And you can also weed out based on that, right? So if somebody joins the team, if they're not living into that, they're not going to feel as comfortable in that environment either. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. It's just that's what our environment is. And so how can you show up in that and kind of have that on display for everybody? So I'm really grateful for the team we have because they all live into it all the time.
For sure, yeah. What was your favorite part of building that team, or what is your favorite day-to-day part of collaborating and working towards the same goals as a team?
Yeah, I love the work that we do. I love supporting our business community. I think it obviously supports our overall community, and I'm really committed to Lancaster County's success. And so to see that in each of our teammates, that's my favorite thing. You know, when they do something that they're really proud of and that they get to show up and be a part of, I love that energy so much. And because we do run so many events, so many programs, interact with so many volunteers, you get to see it pretty routinely.
Yep.
So it's fun to watch other people's success and kind of see them grow and see them build that for themselves too.
Yeah.
For sure.
You had mentioned your predecessor before, and we've seen him at many events. You always shout him out.
Yeah.
What exactly, like, I guess, what was the biggest thing he taught you being in the role that you are in now, and how was kind of taking that over? What was, like, the biggest changes, I guess, that you struggled through?
Yeah, you know, I do think so highly of Tom. He was my predecessor. He'd been at the chamber for 22 years and we worked together for 11. And so I just have such high regard for him. In a lot of ways, he really showed me how you do care about a team and how you care about a community. And so that kind of intentionality that he put to that work always was probably the greatest lesson I learned from him. It's one that you learn over time, that you see it in action, and then you learn it because you feel it and you learn how to give that to others. But I really am so grateful for his mentorship in that way and kind of how he thought about the organization, how he thought about this community, and how he put that on display. In terms of challenges, it's interesting to follow somebody that's been in a role for that long and that is highly respected. For somebody to be somewhere for 22 years, they've got a lot of cachet in the community. And you have to be pretty self-assured in some ways to follow that up and say, okay, I think, especially because I worked there, right? I knew the ins and outs of who we were. So it was like, how do you follow in these footsteps while also being your own person and kind of building the organization in your vision too? So that's had its interesting like twists and challenges along the way. The further in I get, the less I feel challenged by that because it doesn't feel as much like you're going to have that comparative to the person before you. The further you get away from that. But it certainly had those challenges at the beginning where people are like, well, I don't know about that approach or whatever it might be, whether it was community members or staff or that type of thing. But I've had so much support along the way that even in the face of that, it's like there's people really enthusiastic about direction and where we're headed. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great thing to have. What was the importance in your career of having those mentors that kind of taught you the ways of how they've kind of done things? Because it's important for the older generation to kind of teach the younger generation kind of how to go on about things. How has that kind of helped you?
Yeah, I mean, I think mentors are such a big part of it. It's so much of the work that we do at the chamber is really trying to find mentors for people. Having somebody that can just be a backstop or a support for you in some ways of like, hey, I'm trying to approach this, or I'm trying to think about this a little bit differently, or I want to go this direction, but it feels like that might challenge somebody else in some way. Having the ability to kind of talk openly about that with someone, is the thing that I take the most value in a lot of times with my mentors, because you need to have the people around you that you can bounce off of, but they're not going to like fully lean into judging you on that. I know you guys are in peer groups. And so that ability to just kind of talk it through with somebody and say, hey, what direction do I go? While also you're looking at those people in some regard of like, you're doing this well. That's why I want to talk to you about this. I want to gain your perspective because I see you doing it well. And just kind of talking through that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I can. Alex probably feels the same way, but especially in the peer groups, having those mentors, because we're 22, 23 years old. And being in the industry for 4 years, kind of having those older people teach you the ways that, because when we started at 19, that's pretty early age to start doing some of the things we kind of started doing. But looking back on it now, I'm very thankful for it because you don't get those opportunities a lot. So it's definitely been great to have those mentors, especially like Dan and Michael, believing in us at an early age and kind of putting us in uncomfortable positions that ultimately help us grow. Like just like this podcast, we probably 4 years ago we wouldn't have loved doing something like this or never would have wanted to. But now we are on our like 82nd episode. So
It's amazing.
It's crazy.
Well, and I think, Dan is such a good example of this in terms of how do you think about expanding horizons for your team, right? I mean, there's the function of a job that you need somebody to do in your workplace. And then there's and what opportunities can I give them and how do I expand that a bit? And I think there's traditional ways to go about that. And then there's untraditional ways to go about that, non-traditional ways to go about it. And really latching on to like what interests people, what will push them a little bit further. That's what branches somebody out to be like, oh, this is what I'm really good at and this is what I excel at. Plus, I'm over here doing this function that you do need me to do. So I'm much more interconnected into an organization. Yep. I think Dan just kind of exemplifies that with you guys in a lot of ways.
yeah, for sure. He's definitely helping us get very well-rounded in the yard. Like when we go out, for instance, like the peer group I was at this morning, he'll be back in the yard covering for us, which not too many people would do. And it's not an easy job. We're in a scrap yard.
Right.
So processing the metal, it just kind of shows a lot to his sort of character. We know you're big on the Lancaster County community. So are we. What kind of makes you the most proud of the community as a whole and the businesses and the chamber?
Community as a whole, I do think that our community is something special. And I'm sure like everybody that's grown up in a community says that about their community. And I can appreciate that. But having a community where we have a city center, we have kind of the outer suburbs, you get your rural areas, you have all of this connectedness to outside of this community, and yet there's something intrinsically still tight about it. Anything is like 1 degree of separation here, not 7, and so you can always find somebody that knows somebody. And I just love that about this Lancaster County community. I also think in that same way, it means we support each other a lot. So whether it's human to human level or it's businesses supporting small organizations or large organizations in our community, those organizations turning around then and doing the work that they do to support people in our community. There's just a pride of place and people here that I love so much and that we see on display all the time. So that's kind of my, like, what do I love about this place and what am I proud of about Lancaster? In terms of the chamber, I'm most proud probably of the team, honestly, because I just think it's people who are really committed to the work that they do. They show up to do their best, like, each and every day for the business community. And it's a variety, you mentioned it earlier, variety of ages, variety of backgrounds, variety of roles. So functionally, that looks really different for people, but that kind of joint commitment from the team is, it's special too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome to see, like, especially at your guys' events. It doesn't matter if your company has 500 employees or 10 employees. You're all just in one room at a networking event and get to learn and get to know people of all different companies, which is awesome. Do you have any big goals that, like, maybe personal goals or chamber goals that you have for maybe this year or the next 5 years?
Yeah, so we just launched a new strategic plan, and it's kind of a 10-year look. So it looks out to 2035, and it's focused on 3 specific areas. So the first one is that Lancaster County will be the best place to live in Pennsylvania. We're currently ranked number 2, according to U.S. News and World Report. Pittsburgh beats us, so we're going to try to beat them over the course of the next 5 or 10 years. The second one is being a recognized environment for business success and innovation. So how do we ensure that that's happening in our community? How do we help our businesses thrive in that way? And then the third one is being a unified community where people can thrive. And I think that's really about, everybody's not going to love every single thing that they're doing every single day. But how do you ensure people feel like, oh, I can make it in this community. I can find opportunity, that type of thing. Some of these are easier to measure than others. So in order, it gets easier or harder to measure on those. But when I think about, like, what are some of these 10-year goals for us, that's really our North Star when we think about the Chamber's strategic plan. Personally, goals, I think this is one of those things where people expect you to have, like, a really easy answer at times. And for a long time, I probably did. And now I'm in this role and I just want to do right by this work each day and right by my family and right by, the small communities I'm in too. And so I think I've not set these like large, looming, overarching goals for my life in this moment. Because I think there's something to be said for just kind of living in it in the moment that you're in. And I'm sure that will come to me at some point. Like, what's the next thing that I want to do? What's the next thing I want to do for my career or my profession? But I still feel like I'm like getting my feet wet in some spaces every day and figuring that piece out. And then personally, I'm moving in 2 days. So I'm really excited to make that personal goal happen.
That's awesome. Well, I hope that goes smooth for you.
Thank you.
Do you think, hopefully, are you getting any more, would you say more businesses from Columbia joining the chamber at all, or not too?
Man, I'd have
not
to
too
like
much?
look at our register.
Maybe we can get that into some of the goals.
That's
going
right.
over this way.
We do really focus on ensuring that our membership is representative of our whole county. We're a countywide chamber, so we want to make sure that we have members from kind of each corner of the county, all over, different sizes, different types of industries. One of the things that helps Lancaster County weather through a lot of things is that we do have such diverse industry here. We're not like one industry heavy. And so how do you kind of get that spread so you get a variety of viewpoints from businesses on what does it feel like to operate here versus what it might feel like in Ephrata or Quarryville or Paradise. And those are going to feel different than if you're in the city center. So we're always searching for that. And we're fortunate. I mean, we have over 1,300 members. So we're fortunate to have a pretty wide swath of businesses that are kind of providing that perspective to us too.
Yeah.
That's a crazy number, 1,300.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had two questions. The first one, just kind of like, obviously, so you run the Lancaster Chamber of Commerce. You guys do a lot of, like we've been talking about, connecting, networking events, getting people together and stuff like that. Would you say before, like, and I know you said you had previously worked in a bank. Like early in your career, would you say that you did a lot of practicing in this field a little bit, or was it something you were kind of not too used to and had to get used to?
Well, I was saying earlier, I was probably like 21 when I put myself through Leadership Lancaster because I knew I wanted to get connected into this community. I obviously had lived here. I went to Westchester, so I wasn't that far away. But, you're kind of out of the scene for a little bit.
Oh my goodness.
Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulty. Okay, we're back. So I put myself through Leadership Lancaster actually while I was working at the bank because I just wanted to get better connected in. And I was saying earlier at the time, you go into a program like that and it feels like everybody's like very established. They know what they're doing. They know what they want to be. They know who to connect to. They're already in kind of the career spot they want to be. And I was like, man, I'm a bit of a fish out of water here because I'm working at a bank and I know I don't want to do this forever, but it pays the bills and I can work it around my school schedule and whatever. But what it did was it got me so connected to other people. And that's probably a part of why I love doing that piece of this work is because I got connected actually to, after I was done my Leadership Lancaster year, I became the coach of our softball team because Leadership Lancaster at the time had a softball team and I don't like to play softball, but I'm happy to coach softball. And so I became the coach of a volunteer team of people that were all adults in the workplace. Then one of the players worked at the chamber at the time. She was the assistant actually to the president. And she was like, you should apply for this job. And like a couple years later, she was, she's saying you should apply for this job. And I'm like, well, I don't have enough experience to do that and that type of thing. But I did because I was already connected in with all types of people. And I had a lot of legislative connections at the time with elected officials. So it was like all these little pieces feel like they come together in some way for your life for some purpose at some point. And so it's just kind of taking that leap at times of, I'm going to put myself into something that doesn't feel like the most comfortable for me in this moment. But I think it will serve me in some way at some point.
Yeah, that's definitely something I think is just takes time to learn, like work in the room and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
That shows the importance to take kind of the initiative in life too.
Yeah.
Because if you wouldn't have done that, I'm sure it would have been a lot harder to get where you are today.
Right. You just kind of miss some of the things that could be right in front of you along the way. But it does take like, okay, I got to get comfortable walking into a room with 70 people that I don't really know. Then networking with them and shaking hands and doing the whole 9 yards. And
Yeah.
some of them have been doing this for 30 years already. So we're at like different spaces.
Yeah.
For sure. I feel like the events are a big reason people join the chamber because you guys have great speakers. Every event's great. Do you have a favorite event style or event that you guys kind of throw? I love the annual dinners a lot because obviously the speakers are always amazing and it's a lot of people. But
yeah, I mean, it's the most it's the most elevated event we do, right? There's over 2,000 people in a room. You have a whole experience around that whole night. We get to honor members of our community and have an amazing speaker. So it's a whole vibe when it comes to that event. But in terms of kind of the more day-to-day events that we do, for a long, long time, we do what are called consortiums, and now they're called regional meetings, where we do them in specific regions of the county. And there's networking built into that, and then there's usually a topic that's specific to that community. And so I got to run those for a while, which was great, and I still really do enjoy those because it's the thing that gets us out into those communities talking about and hearing from people in those communities about how they're addressing a topic or an issue. So I do love the connectedness that comes from some of those smaller pieces where it's just people getting together to talk about a common topic in a common community, which is nice.
What would you say? Well, how many events do you have each year? Like, is there?
So upwards of 150. So
Wow.
we're probably at like 165 for this year right now. And that will go up because inevitably what happens is we add something into the calendar that's either just an issue comes up, like tariffs right now.
Yeah.
They're a big topic. So we're doing a tariff roundtable next week. Well, we couldn't have known in December when we were planning our year that this is what the topic of conversation would be in April. So we have all that stuff that kind of pops up. But yeah, we're probably at 165 right
that's
now.
a crazy number if you think about it. That's like an event every 2-3 days.
Yeah. So if you look at our calendar, it probably is 2 to 3 things a week, almost every week.
And what do you think?
Wow.
What would you say? This could be a harder question, maybe. What do you think sets you guys apart from other chambers that are available to join in the area?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think every chamber has its place in this community. There's different ways chambers support people, and there's different networks people are looking for. And so I love that we have a variety of options for people to engage with. For our chamber, because we are countywide, it just comes with a different set of resource to it. Like we have a public policy arm in that Kat is our public policy manager. I have a background in that space. So we're doing a lot of legislative work, which kind of happens behind the scenes, and people don't think of it as often as a member benefit. And yet there's a lot of that's happening on a daily basis where there's conversations taking place for issues that are impacting businesses. So there's kind of that piece of things. The other piece is just having access to 1,300 other businesses. That represents over half of Lancaster County's workforce is employed at those 1,300 businesses. And there's just a vastness to that network. So, you know, if you're looking to get your business in front of somebody, our advertising or our sponsorship opportunities, they're really going to offer a plethora of reach with that just because of the size of and scope of that organization.
Yeah.
For sure. We were at your guys' event, the State of the County at St. Joe's. And it was interesting hearing your guys' long-term plans with the chamber. What are some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that you guys are kind of finding through that?
Yeah, so there's lots of opportunity for a community like ours. We're one of the only ones that's growing in the Commonwealth. So when you look at from a county basis, there's only like 7 counties that are showing growth in their population. Lancaster County is one of them, and so that's always a good thing. And then there's challenges with that too, because as a community grows, it puts pressures on you in terms of, well, how do we meet our housing needs? How do we fix our roads? How do we make sure that everybody has like the services that they need in this community? So there's a real balance to, we want the community to grow and we want the community to maintain the roots and heritage of what it is. Like we love that we have farmland and that we have outdoor recreation space and all of those pieces. It's a part of what is attractive to people and why they want to move here. But how do you balance all of those concepts at the same time? And so there's a lot of intentionality, I think, from our community of how we do that, and certainly from a chamber perspective. But we know to meet our workforce needs, we are going to have to attract talent here. The Commonwealth overall is fastest growing in people age like 80 and over, which isn't super helpful for meeting workforce needs. We need working age population, like 21 to 65.
Yeah.
So it's just a set of challenges that you try to approach and position Lancaster County as a place where people want to be so that they want to be in the jobs we have here.
Yeah, it was pretty eye-opening seeing that there's just not enough people to fill the roles kind of here right now. I was interested kind of thinking about what you were just saying. If there was a family that was kind of thinking about moving to Lancaster County, what would you kind of say to, and they asked you for your advice, what would you kind of say to them? Like, what are maybe your favorite things about this area, or what would kind of be your pitch to them in a way?
So my favorite thing about living here, and this is very specific to me, is that I live in a more rural area. I'm out kind of by a park and there's farms all around me and that kind of thing. And then I go into the city every day for work. So I get like the best of both worlds in that way. My job also sends me all over this county, so that's nice. But when I think about what's attractive, it kind of is that you can experience all that. You can have a downtown that has a plethora of different food types, restaurants, that type of thing. And so do all of these small communities and boroughs that we have around the county. And then if you want to go hiking, you have, 10,000 options to do it because we have all kinds of preserves and recreation areas. So it's that you can kind of find whatever you want to do here in Lancaster or within 3 hours of here. I mean, everything's super accessible to Pittsburgh, Baltimore, New York, any of those places you want to get to. You can get to the beach. I mean, I talked to friends of mine that live in like the middle of the country. And they're like, we only went to the beach like once every 7 years when I was kids, because if you live in Iowa, you're not going to the beach all that often. You know what I mean?
So for us, it was a normal thing.
Yeah, it's just
crazy.
That accessibility feels advantageous to me in a lot of ways.
For sure. It's just like Jill Hackman says, the only thing you can't be in Lancaster County is an astronaut.
There we
so
go.
far, but that'll probably change within the next year.
True.
Yeah. Aren't we going up? We're like moving our way up on the list of, are we one of like the top places to retire?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what
I think we're like 7 or 8 on that list or something.
Yeah, and
crazy.
all the other ones ahead of us are in Florida.
Yeah.
So it's like Florida and then Pennsylvania
Yeah.
and Lancaster County specifically. So
I went to on Sunday, my girlfriend's family, they had like a dinner and we were meeting some other parts of her family. And they came from Philly, but we met in Oxford. So we had like an hour drive. And they were just complaining how like it was all traffic through the city getting there. I was like, we had a beautiful drive.
right.
We're just going through
This has been great.
yeah.
But we can also get to Philly in like an hour on the turnpike,
Right.
which is nice. I love this area. So this is a question that caught my eye right away. The annual dinner's coming up, and we always see you usually up on the big stage interviewing. Do you ever get nervous, or has that gotten kind of better getting up there? Because personally, my face gets very red and I just get nervous right away. Has that gotten easier?
No. It's still like you still have to walk out and stand there and talk in front of 2,000 people, which is a lot. It's so funny you say that because just yesterday we were at an event. It was like a small thing. And somebody said to me, we were talking through the process for annual dinner, and somebody was like, yeah, we start that video and then it's the 30-minute countdown. And then as we get closer, we're making sure all these pieces are in place. And I immediately started getting butterflies in my stomach because I can picture that feeling of when that clock is truly counting down and you're in that room. And once it hits like less than 5 minutes, I am backstage because the video is going to run and all the things. I literally felt it yesterday, and we're like 3 months out from the dinner, 2 months out from the dinner. But I do think I've gotten maybe more comfortable embracing, like I am who I am. And so I'm going to be up there. And if you've been to it, you've like seen me cry on stage kind of thing. Cause I'm really proud of people, and it can be emotional to do that. And I've gotten more comfortable with that piece of like, this is kind of who I am. And so you're going to see that a little bit on this stage. But it still is 2,000 people sitting in front of you. The upside is you can't really see anyone besides the lights are so bright. The room is spread out. So you can't really see a lot of faces. You can only see like 2 to 3 of the tables. And like my mom and dad sit at one and my husband sits at another. And then Molly's at one of the, so at least it's friendly faces that I'm seeing all the time.
Yeah, I always think about that. That makes me very nervous. That'd be like my biggest fear if I knew I had to go up there. Do you do anything specifically to kind of prepare for that, or do you kind of just go in?
So I do script into that. Like I write out really, and part of that is because we have a whole production team that's kind of following some cues as well. And so there's a piece where they need to know where I'm at so that they can be doing the right things too. So I script into that, and I spend a lot of time with that script, and I do my own writing for what I'm going to say on that. Molly does other pieces of that as well. Like she'll put some thoughts together, I'll work from those, that type of thing. But getting that familiarity with it, I think makes me more comfortable with it. There's also there's a or it's not called a teleprompter, but same thing as a teleprompter that runs in front of you. And I just found I don't know how comfortable I'm going to be with that. So I put all my stuff on cards still just so that I can reference to those, because that can, if you're not used to that, that can throw you off. So it's this balance of, okay, let me make sure I have a reinforcement tool in case I get thrown off. So these are little behind the scenes things that make it kind of easier to work through it.
Yeah, I think it's good though when you go up and you're vulnerable, because it shows the people how much you truly care. It's not easy to, number one, go up in front of that many people, but also to be able to be vulnerable, I think's a very important piece. We know you guys have a lot of young people working for you. What do you think about kind of the Gen Z employees like us? What do you think about the younger generation?
Well, I love you guys. I think that there's a balance to how people, and look, I can also acknowledge I'm in a workplace where we have a lot of flexibility, and so people can kind of work in the style that they work best in, right? Yeah. So we're in an office setting, and people are able to, if you want to work at a coffee shop for a couple hours, or you want to work from home, or you want to be in the office, what I think is key is there's a responsibility for us that have been in the workforce to mentor what we're looking for, show what we're looking for from other people, right? And so if my expectation is that you're going to be somewhere, then I better be able to be there too. If my expectation is that if you need to go home because you're sick, then I can't come to work sick. You know what I mean? I think we have to demonstrate what we're asking for from other people in really any workplace setting that we're in. I mean, you talked about Dan will go out in the yard and do things while you guys are doing other pieces of your work. It's that kind of servant leadership that I think demonstrates what you're looking for and creates the cultural feel that you're looking for. So I don't know that I think it's so much about generational aspects are very real. I don't want to diminish that, because I'm a older millennial, and there's lots of things that we get. And then obviously boomers have all their things. And so every generation does have some of their psychology built into that. But I do think the responsibility is on other people in the organization to also show this is how we roll here. This is what we do. And let me kind of guide you into that. And every workplace that's going to look different for.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that, of kind of trying to figure out my own way of leading. I don't know, I'd get you can always feel comfortable if you're asking someone to do something and they've seen you, they know for sure that you're willing to do it and you've done it before. You kind of, for me, that helps me ask them to do it in a way. Right. So it's kind of, the same thing. You guys as leaders setting the expectation to new people coming in.
I think it's also the communication piece. I feel like once you get our generation to trust you, and you show them that there's a path and you're not just going to be doing the same thing forever. I feel like that's at least will help me a lot. Not that I was necessarily looking for that, but it kind of came to us, which we're lucky in that aspect. But I feel like that's been huge. As long as you're able to communicate, we've had pretty much every conversation that you could have with Dan. And I think that stuff's important. When we first started, we went over to Smith's across the street one-on-one with Dan and just wrote down our life goals. And that was over 3 years ago, just so he knows what we're kind of working towards. He's going to push us towards that because he knows that those are our goals at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah. And, I think it is important to understand the people you're working with. What motivates them, or what do they get excited about, right? There's a job that you're doing, and then there's, I'd be really interested in this space, or I've always been kind of intrigued by that. How do you find the ways to work that in? That's meaningful stuff to people. And you touched on communication, and I think about that too a lot, because Kat on our team is younger and she does public policy. It's an area that I know so well because it's what I did for many years at the chamber. And she will challenge me and push me to think differently about something. And I will challenge her and push her. And then we can walk away from it and still be like, okay, that was better because we pushed each other and we challenged each other. But it takes an openness to be willing to communicate in that style, and not feel like I'm telling her what to do or she's pushing back on me just for the sake of pushing back on me. It's we're both invested in it being constructive and being the best for where we're trying to get to. And there's some times where as a leader, you just have to make a decision to say, okay, but this is what we're going to do.
Yep.
But it's better to have talked through it and had the conversational pushback or agreement or whatever it may be, just so that we get to a better place with it.
For sure. Yeah, I think it gets to a bad place sometimes where like it's very easy to get to, hey, I'm older than you. I kind of know the right way to do it. 9 times out of 10, the older person probably does know the better way of doing it. But just having that, I guess, humility to be able to just let that other person get their thoughts out at least, that changes a lot for that person. Just because at least they know that they're heard.
And I think so much there's times where people feel like I need you to do it my way because I think my way is the most right. But that doesn't mean that a different way is wrong. It's just a different way to get to right. And so there's a lot of times where I'm assessing, not just for Kat, but for anybody, do I have this opinion because I think it will meaningfully change the direction that we're going or how that's going, like what the outcome's going to be? Or do I just feel like this is what I think it should be? And I have to discern that, right? I have to decide, like, is the path they're trying to take going to work? If it is, then like we can kind of let that go and you can get there how you're going to get there. And I might have done it a little bit differently, but I don't need you to do it exactly the same way as me. But that takes real thinking on my part of like, okay, how important is it to me that it gets done this very specific way? Otherwise, you can do it your way. We'll both learn something along the way, kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's an importance in being able to fail. Like,
Yeah.
we're very lucky here. We fail a lot, I would say, in some of the things we do. And it's minor things, like whether it's sorting a load, trying a different way of doing it. But just having that kind of ability to just be able to mess up, you learn a lot through that.
Yeah.
And you fix it for the next time.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Heather, this has been awesome. I think the way we always wrap it up, we ask kind of
Finale question.
finale
Okay.
question of just starting off your career. If you could backtrack a couple years, would you say, or what would you say would be the biggest piece of advice you could give to people our age, kind of starting out in the workforce or wherever they are?
I mean, for me, it's always going to be about those connections, finding things that get you connected to something you're passionate about, whether that's through your work or through just a personal space. I think always taking that leap and just kind of finding something that feels outside of your comfort zone but might connect you in a different space is a really important part of building character, but also building how you think about your career, building how you think about the community that you're in, all of those types of things. So it's that discomfort that comes with new connection, I think, would be the piece where I'm like, try it. It's not always going to feel great. It's not always going to lead to a very specific outcome. But if you try it, it will enrich you in some way. And that's the key.
Cool. That's great advice. Thank you again for coming on. I'm sorry about the wind and the little bit
It's
of rain.
okay.
Thank the Lord that the rain stopped.
Right. It's
But
okay. I had so much fun.
We
Thanks,
appreciate
guys.
you coming on, and we're looking forward to the annual dinner in
Yes.
2 months.
Yes, it's on June 18th this year, and it's focused on AI. And you use AI all the time.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm really
Every day.
excited for you to come and hear from Zach Cass on it.
Sounds good. Well, thank you again for coming on. I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point.
Yeah.
And if you guys, I'll have the link below to the Lancaster Chamber. If you're in our area, Lancaster County, and want to check it out, I highly advise, especially if you're young, because there's a lot of young people there as well.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming on. See you
Appreciate
guys
it.
on the next episode.